In this video, I'll add subsurface scatters on our eco characters here. For me, in working in Mental Ray, if it's not skin or car paint, it's an MIA material X passes. For skin, we have skin materials available, and they're very good. I'll start out by selecting one of them and going into a perspective so I can see them better. I've got the character selected, and he's already been unwrapped. I'll put a material on, and I'll do this by right-clicking and choosing Assign New Material. Under Mental Ray Materials, in the Assign New Material node, if we scroll down, we have our subsurface scatter materials. These are shown as MISSS, Mental Ray or Mental Include, Subsurface Scatter. There's a Fast Shader X, Fast Shader X Passes, Fast Simple, and Fast Skin. Here's the differences. As always, Fast Shader came first, and X was the next version. X Passes allows for additional render passes rendering in Mental Ray. Fast Simple, then, is a quick utility subsurface scatter with the ability to put in additional shaders for different components. For Skin, we've got Skin. The big difference is this. Skin understands that it is skin, down to a light map. In practice, it means use it for skin. Don't use it for something else. This won't make good leather. This won't make good wood. This is not going to be good glass. It's not a utility material. This understands it should behave like skin, and that's about it. Here's the cool part, though. In this material, which is geared towards basically human skin of one flavor or another, we have a subsurface scatter layer, where there's an epidermal, subdermal, and backscatter color. Human skin has 5 live and 2 dead layers, or am I getting that backwards? 5 dead and 2 live? But anyhow, there's multiple layers to that. Within that, there is color, there is a color under the surface, and there is the color of the tissues inside, which in our case we have red blood. So when you shine a flashlight on your hand, the red you see is the backscatter color from your tissues and blood inside. Great. Within each of these we can assign a radius, and we have a specularity and the ability to put in a bump. So if you take your eco out to Mudbox or another character and you craft a normal map to bring it in, we can use it. What I'll start out with is just getting the look right on this character. I've got multiple slots I can put a map in. Overall, diffuse, and epidermal color, where I'll put in his spots in his skin. I'll start out by just seeing how this looks in the view before I add maps. I'll go into camera 2. This is about as close as I get on him, and a pretty good judgment here of how this skin is going to look. Note that I'm putting in skin only after I've gotten the lighting in the scene, the camera, and the exposure on. I'll pull up my IPR and see how it goes. So no doubt you're looking at this rendering and saying, wow, that looks awful. I'm never going to use skin. But don't panic yet. Here's the thing. This skin is made to work and look like skin with normal lighting. When we use a photographic exposure or daylight system or anything like that, we need to go in the skin down to the algorithm control and uncheck screen composite. We'll run the IPR again and we'll see the skin look much better. Basically, this controls how does the layering of the skin work and how does it light. Now he's going to look like he's made of skin fairly nicely. With the IPR finished rendering, we can see that the skin looks much better. He's really shining through nicely. This light back here is backscatter, as it is on his hands as well, where that orange, subdermal, and epidermal scatter colors are showing. I'm going to start to put in his maps and see how it looks. Notice on all the scatters we have a weight and a radius. What we're seeing here, this orange, is because of the subdermal scatter color and the epidermal scatter color with a nice high radius and a good weight, bringing that orange through the model. That plus the intensity of the lights, which is why I want to get the lights in quick, is giving me that look. I'll start out by introducing in his diffuse color his painted texture. I'll click on the texture node for diffuse color and pick File. In the File dialog, I'll browse to the Scene Assets Source Images and go find that texture. In the source images, I'll pick Eco Diffuse 2, a painted texture for him. I'll let my IPR rerun, and we'll start to see his spots come into the skin. With my IPR running, and the texture in the diffuse color, I can start to see some of the spots coming out. However, this diffuse weight is low, about a third of the overall color. There's some things I can do with this. I can land this texture in the overall color, so the color sits on the outside of the skin. Or I can do a texture for his subsurface scatter layers. I'll try the epidermal scatter color with the same image. I'll pause my IPR and click on the texture node for the epidermal scatter color. I'll go to File and go choose that diffuse map again. Now when I resume my IPR, I'll start to see that texture show up a little better. One of the things we can also do while this runs is paint maps as a grayscale that define the scatter weight and radius. In this case, we may want more scatter on his ears, so they would be lighter in a scatter map, and less on his chest, because it may be more bone or whatever's going on in there, and hence darker. At least with that map in the epidermal scatter color, I can start to see his spots coming out. I can also adjust the scatter radius to start to get less scatter around his shoulders and neck. Finally, I can start to play with the specularity. The subsurface scatter materials have a double layer specularity, a primary and a secondary. What this is good for is in skin, a broad bloom or highlight, and pin highlights if somebody is wet or oily. Each of these has a shininess and a weight. How much of the weight or percentage of the specularity from that particular one contributes to the overall shine. We can put in a reflection if somebody is indeed wet. And finally, we have the ability to put in a bump shader, where we'll introduce a file node in here and see a normal map or other such map work. He's looking pretty good. He needs material for his eyes and his teeth, but his spots and his skin are looking fairly realistic.